One of my goals has always been to bring science and the paranormal together. Paranormal is just science undiscovered or misunderstood.
Every time I keep asking how good can it get, this prompts the participatory universe to provide us with answers that we genuinely do want to live the answer to.
Hello, my name is Christopher Anatra. You know me as the quantum businessman.
And I say, you know what? I don't need to know where I'm headed. I thought I knew where I was headed before and I didn't end up there. So why worry about where I'm headed? Why not just accept this now moment, trust that whatever guided me here with you guys that I feel is divine is going to continue to guide me.
The content you are about to watch is meant for thought and consideration. Please be respectful of each other and opinions shared. This is a safe place to express thoughts, ideas, and information. Please note that no copyright infringement is intended with regards to inclusion of short excerpts of material that are included in accordance with fair use under Section 107 of the Copyright Act. IMEC, or International Mandela Effect Conference, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization designed to support ongoing Mandela Effect research. To learn more about IMEC, please go to imec.world.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the International Mandela Effect Conference Open Table Special, a spooky Halloween special. JFK and the Stemmons witches. What is this about? Ladies and gentlemen, I promise this is definitely going to be an episode you do not want to miss. It's going to be quite spooky and in a very IMEC way, if you will, ladies and gentlemen. But I can't do this incredible show alone. Oh no, I've got an incredible team of people that I work with, and I'm about to bring them on right now, starting with the one and only Miss Cynthia Sue Larson of realityshifters.com. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm so glad to be with you today. It's
always
a pleasure.
Took the words right out of my mouth. Always a pleasure, ma'am. The pleasure is all mine. Next up, we have, you know him as the quantum businessman, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christopher Anatra, sorry. Don't go by my pronunciation of his last name, by the way, calling it a Mandela Effect. I say it like 5 different ways. So, bless your heart. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Yes, say it like an Italiano. Anatra. Let it flow. Anatra. Thank you. And happy Halloween, everybody. This is going to be quite the show.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
Anatra. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next up we have the one, the only, the unbiased and on the fence himself, Mr. Shane Robinson. Glad to have you here with us, my friend.
Hello, everybody. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to the team, and happy Halloween to all of you guys listening out there. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a heck of a show for you today. Do we have an agenda to go through real quick? To rock this off right, or do we not have an agenda to start with, Chris?
We're gonna go right into it. So yeah.
All right. In that case, ladies and
we can take a minute and look at this slide here, though. This is interesting.
I was gonna say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna turn this over to the team because I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot in this one. This has not been my research case, so I'm going to let them do most of the talking this episode. So what do we have here? This is 3 hooded figures. Where are we at here, Chris?
Yeah, so basically we see 3 hooded figures at a location that was just a few miles where the JFK assassination happened. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of like very interesting, we're going to get into all the specifics about this with the slides, but it's super fascinating, especially when you start to understand, well, we all know about Mandela effects and how they work, and then the concept of timelines, and are these timelines or time frames, are they actually merging together? That's why more and more of this information is being revealed. And the question is, are we ready for this information? Because I feel that this information, that the truth of the whole situation needs to come out. It needs to come out for us to go through a healing process. And I think that's really important. We have to go through a healing process. We have to understand how things operated. And we want to reject that. That's not what we want to do going forward. So this whole presentation is going to start to shed some light on some issues related to new things related to the JFK assassination, what you call Mandela effects. And also too, is it possible that black magic was used? So we're going to like investigate all these different things. And it's when I first uncovered it, I was like, wow, could this be? And then as you go deeper and deeper, you find more and more connections to be like, wow, something is going on here. So everyone keep an open mind. A lot of you have never heard of this information before. It'll be brand new. And I think it's going to be important for us to understand different layers of what happened during that assassination. And not just that, but there are others. There are a lot of deaths that were involved with the JFK assassination too. So you think about Officer Tibbet that got shot, Lee Harvey Oswald, I think he was killed within 48 hours by Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby later died. Like there's a whole sequence of events to keep a lid on things, to keep a lid on the cauldron, so to speak. So we're going to take that lid off the cauldron and we're going to see actually what's in there.
And our Halloween theme is interesting for the international followers of IMEC. I know in some countries they don't celebrate Halloween. It's mostly like an English and Irish and American thing. I lived in Switzerland and they don't celebrate in Switzerland. They don't do Halloween, but it's a children's holiday. Typically it happens on October 31st. It's All Hallows Eve. And in America, we do trick-or-treating. The kids go from house to house and get a treat, or else originally, I guess they do some sort of trick, which doesn't sound so good. But anyway, it's a fun thing. But our show, like Chris is saying, is going into a little bit darker side of Halloween. Witches, of course, are associated with Halloween in Ireland, England, and America, and any place that Halloween is celebrated. So if people are in the chat and they want to say Happy Halloween or say where you're from, and if you're doing Halloween where you are, that'll be cool.
Well, it looks like our chat has changed it, Cynthia. They're not saying Happy Halloween. They're saying Happy Mandela-ween.
I like it.
So they've come up with their own version, hashtag Mandela-ween. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make that this year's Twitter thing, right? Mandela-ween. See how far we can take that. But we know that JFK has been a huge Mandela effect with a lot of researchers scratching their heads in details from the reactions of Jackie herself to the color of the film never having ever been in black and white, at least not that I can find evidence of it anymore. If I'm wrong, please, guys, by all means, let us know, right? Like, I don't want to misspeak. But there's been many, many Mandela effects that we keep finding revolving around JFK. And as we tend to look into these things, we tend to find even more strange oddities. And Chris, you've uncovered a plethora of oddities in this, and a story that I don't think anyone's ever really told. At least I have never been told, especially on this platform. So this is really going to be very, very fascinating.
Yeah. And just to add to this too, recently Joe Rogan had an interview with President Trump.
Yes.
And they were talking about, there's a certain segment where they talk about the JFK assassination. And what's interesting for me is that when I first got hit hard by the Mandela effect, it was like maybe a couple of weeks after, I think it was back in 2016, Trump had announced he was going to release all the information about the Warren Commission and so forth. And then that's when that information, I went to look at the Zapruder film, and it was completely different from what I remembered. Wow. Now, during this latest interview that he did with Joe Rogan, he said that the reason he didn't release it is because people had told him that there were still people alive that would be affected by this. So there are names, there's addresses, etc., and that really the public was not ready to learn of these things. But at the end of the conversation, so Trump decided back in 2016 he wasn't going to release it, but he did tell Joe Rogan that would be one of the first things that he does, is release the Warren Commission, totally unredacted, so you don't have all the black magic marker through all the things, so we could really understand what happened. So, and will we be understanding everything that happened from that? No, but in this special mini-sode, we might get a little bit more of what happened behind the scenes. So
is that the government's black magic markers?
Yeah, right.
I just wanted to interject something here. That what do you guys know who's passed away since he said that, and what person passed away since he said there's still people alive? And now
A lot of
George H.
people.
W. Bush died in 2018, and of course he was involved with the
that he
CIA.
did.
So to me, his name always pops up when you start looking into the JFK stuff. So
Yeah.
that could be the one person that was holding things up.
Well, there's a lot of theories he was the one holding more than things up.
Yeah, and there's theories too about he was in Dallas that day and he was spotted and all that kind of stuff. He was like somehow involved in that, but we're not going to be getting into those specifics.
And he couldn't remember. But yeah, you're right. That's not this show.
That's not what this show is going to be.
Tangents already.
Yeah.
There's so many rabbit holes in this particular rabbit hole that they just get so many offshoots that it's so deep.
Well, today,
but
Chris has developed quite a good, strong case for some things we could look at that have a total timeline interaction effect. So that's the Mandela thread. We do have solid evidence. So let's take a look at that.
Yes. So shall we go to the first slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Sign blocks the motorcycle.
Motorcade.
Or motorcade, sorry.
Yes. So,
work, guys. I need you to work.
So I'll just kind of give like a little bit about this particular image that we're looking in. This is from the Zapruder film, and this is image number 200 from the Zapruder film. Now, there's all these cars, like they're all tightly packed together. There's so many more people on the sidelines. And for me, a couple of years ago, this sign appeared blocking the motorcade. Now, I don't know if anyone else has that similar type of a memory, but I never saw the sign before. Which I think was like very interesting. So I'm like, what is this sign that's blocking the motorcade? This was just one of the many things that people like myself have been spotting over the last couple of years. For some of you, it could have been much longer than that, depending on what frequency bandwidth timeline you're in. The sign could have always been there, but for myself, it wasn't. So,
can I ask you a question, Chris?
Sure.
You said it's the 200th frame. Is this like in the very beginning? Because I know in one film I've seen, it may be the original, it shows like a little piece and it jumps to a different spot where he's standing on the road. Is this in that very first little segment, or?
What do you mean by who's somebody standing on the road?
So Zapruder, where he's standing at, it looks like he's like filming one spot, then it looks like it jumps and he's filming from a different angle or location. At least that's what I remember, right? Like there's a little spot in the front and then it jumps to a new.
That's all part of the Mandela Effect version, too, right? Like that jump didn't occur in the original film, from what I remember, the black and white.
I mean, yeah, I don't remember the sign being there. Like currently, it's one smooth shot. It's not like he started filming, but again, that's not. I don't really have an answer to that. If Zapruder had moved around.
Well, I'm just saying, is this in like the first couple of seconds of the film, or where's this at in relation to the film itself?
Oh yeah, this is like when the motorcade's just coming around the corner.
So it's at the very beginning of the film.
It's near the beginning of the film. Exactly.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get to right there.
Which
like
frame is the
film
assassination frame?
Do you know, Chris, which frame is the assassination frame?
I thought it was
just out of curiosity.
I thought it started off in the 260s, but I don't.
Oh, okay. So it's closer to the assassination in the beginning. That's kind of what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So basically, the first slide is talking about this sign, and then just everyone keep this in mind because we're going to revisit this at the very end, because the sign blocking what's happening is a clue. And then as we get into it, there's going to be more things that reveal and reveal and reveal, and then at the end we'll see how the sign works into the whole thing. So if there's no other questions, we can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. 11/22/63. Now, I've seen this used as TV show dates and everything else. This is a big like history moment, apparently. I mean, aside from the fact that he was murdered.
Yeah. So when it comes to the date, for myself, I don't remember it being 11/22. So, a lot of times you look at numbers and you remember like 1122 is a sequence of numbers that you would remember. For myself, the date seemed to change a few years ago. Now, this is going to get a little bit intricate when I talk about this. The first thing I'm going to mention is that the image on the right-hand side is from a series on Netflix that just came into my awareness about a year ago called 11/22/63. It's from a book that Stephen King wrote. And James Franco was the star of the movie, and J.J. Abrams directed the whole series. So this is like a big deal. I think it came out in 2015.
Is that the time travel one?
Yeah, there's time travel involved.
Yes, yes, I know that series.
Yeah. So basically the premise of that series was basically that there was this diner that had this really long closet in the back. And if you walk through the closet to the very end of the closet, you'd fall through and you'd end up in 1960. And then you could go back in to where you came, and you go back into the present time when you left it. So time travel is definitely involved with this. They don't call it a portal. They call it a rabbit hole, is what Stephen King called it. And the whole premise was about how if you try to change time, time pushes back. But it does everything from a singular point of view, that there's only one timeline. And the way it was written, it had some really good possibilities to talk about some of the alternative things that could have been happening. But it really went with the global narratives view of, Oswald and so forth. So there's the series using the date 11/22/63. Now, for myself, I don't remember it being that date. I remember it being a week before. Now, this is interesting because of Thanksgiving. So a lot of us know the Mandela Effect, where Thanksgiving for me was always the third Thursday of November, all the time, right?
Yes.
In this timeline, it's always the fourth Thursday of November. So now we're off by a week. Now, what's interesting is that I remember it happening, like the assassination happening a week before Thanksgiving. If it had happened on Thanksgiving week, there's all these stories about like kids were being taken out of school because the parents wanted them to see the president pass by and all that kind of stuff. So there's the situation where the dates changed, but they're still reflecting Thanksgiving. They're still reflecting it happening a week before Thanksgiving, which is interesting. So Thanksgiving in 1963 was November 28th. So again, in this timeline, he was killed before then. But also in the timeline I remember, he was also killed a week before Thanksgiving. So I just wanted to throw this little tidbit of dates and how they work and how timelines get merged in, because there could have been too many differences if it was the same date. And maybe there's a reason why it changed to 1122.
So even though it changed with a consistency. It stayed a week behind Thanksgiving.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the point. Exactly.
It maintained a certain consistency within the change.
Right. And you think about it too, like, so the next week, families are getting together. They're talking about what's happened in the world. Probably every Thanksgiving dinner conversation was talking about the JFK assassination, right? So there's that whole Thanksgiving part of the equation that had to be factored in. So it's all part of like how timeline editing and those type of things are done outside of this reality. So just wanted to touch on this, on the date. So in this timeline, it was November 22nd. So any questions on this one before we go on to the next?
I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know the date until watching this. Like, I didn't have it memorized. Let me put it like that. I knew it was November-ish,
Right.
But I didn't have the date memorized until I watched this show. And that's how I know the date of his death now, is because that's the date of the name of the show. You know what I mean? So actually, I may be a little off on like knowing whether or not that was the Mandela Effect to begin with, because I didn't know the date originally. Go ahead, Cynthia.
I think it's so interesting that now the date is it's like 11/11/22, like Shane's hat 11/11. It's got those repeating numbers now. But Chris remembers it used to be the middle of November, and that's very significant. I think there's a lot to unpack here.
There is.
I wanted to take a little chat break for Joan Hurt. She says, "See y'all next weekend."
Yes.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
So excited. And for y'all that may not know, of course, if you've been living under a rock, the International Mandela Effect Conference. annual meetup, physical meetup conference where we're going to have speakers and incredible food and entertainment and most of all, friendship and discussion and the ability to hang out with people of like mind that are into the same things you are. Some even may be way more out there in their thinking than you are. Trust me, I've met a couple myself who have really expanded my horizons on thinking. As you see here on the screen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a plethora of incredible speakers from our very own Christopher Anatra. I got it right that time. I'm so proud of myself. Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence. Miss Cynthia Sue Larson of Reality Shifters are going to be giving speeches. Our incredible keynote speakers, Bill McKenna and Liz Larson. I always want to call them McKenzie, and I know it's not the right word. Bill McKenna and Liz Larson will be our keynote opening speakers for this episode. We have an international speaker, ladies and gentlemen, Pippa Ona. I cannot wait to hear what she's got to say. As a matter of fact, I may just hand her a phone book. Just asked her to start reading. Lee Allen Bogus, I'm not sure if I said that correctly. He will be there. He's also known as Crazy's Lab YouTube channel. We've got Trish Lesage. We've got Charles Labeda. Charles is going to be interesting. This is a scientist, if I'm not mistaken, or a PhD. Did his PhD work, correct, Cynthia, on the Mandela Effect?
Yes, that's right. He's going to be reporting on his research, and it's phenomenal. So definitely want to see that.
I can't wait to hear what he's. As you guys know, I get a weak spot for the science side of things. So this is going to be like my personal favorite right here until I hear what he has to say. Choose favorites, Jerry. Yeah, I know. Natasha Sinkovich. Did I say that correctly?
You got it. Yep.
It's small on my screen here, so bless my eyes. And of course, Candace Craw Goldman, ladies and gentlemen. This right here, if you do not know who Candace Craw Goldman is, you are in for an absolute treat. If you were an old school researcher, if you're from the old days of research before Mandela Effect ever came up, you know that there was in this community especially a split between people that knew who Cynthia Sue Larson was, myself in that category, and people that knew who Dolores Cannon was. I did not know who Dolores Cannon was. She was also another incredible researcher along the same lines and fields as Miss Cynthia Sue Larson was for many years, the Mandela Effect, of course. Candace Craw Goldman worked hand in hand with the late, great Dolores Cannon. She was her protege, correct?
Yeah.
So this is going to be an incredible, incredible talk she's going to give. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one for the ages right here. If you do not know who this person is, you have been missing out. You have got to come check this out. Candace Craw Goldman is an incredible researcher, able to give us information from a person who's no longer with us, Miss Dolores Cannon. So I can't wait to hear what she has to say. So many good speakers. Gentlemen, I could say something amazing and wonderful about every one of these folks. It's such a great show we've got coming up. And of course, yours truly will be emceeing this year. Unfortunately, I will not give a talk. I gave all my information last year. I don't have anything new yet. So we look forward to seeing all of you guys the 7th to the 10th, Nashville, Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, go to imec.world, imec.world for more information. Of course, this is our 4th annual event. Established 2019. I think we need to start adding that. Established 2019.
Yeah, yeah.
You see in the chat, Go-Kart Bob says, this year Thanksgiving is on the 28th, the 5th week.
Oh boy.
Ooh. I'm really
I guess
confused.
it's technically the last Thursday.
How many weeks we got? We're gonna have like 8 weeks in a month. We keep it up. Like,
Thanks for that, Bob.
I just remember the
Appreciate it,
third
man.
Thursday. I just love the third Thursday. So
I always thought it was. I remember I was working at Dairy Queen when I figured this out. I was looking at the calendar and wait, that calendar's not right. It's on the wrong Thursday. And no, that's not right. That's not right.
I think it is the 4th Thursday. I'm looking at like a printed calendar, and
Okay.
the first Thursday of November is the 7th. And then if you count 4 from there, it goes to the 28th. So I think technically it is the 4th. It's still the 4th Thursday.
But it's the fifth. It's the 5th week of November. So both are true. Both are true. 5th week. It's like quantum logic. It's both the 5th week.
Well,
and the
what do
4th
you
week.
know? Speaking of Crazy's Lab, here he is in the chat.
Hey, Crazy's Lab. What's up?
Woo!
I can't wait to hear his talk at the conference this year, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to
So
be
excited.
incredible, I'm sure.
So,
And to get to meet him in person. This is great. We're
And that's the
excited.
best part about these. Before
Yeah.
we move on, that is the best part about these conferences. Speakers are amazing. I love hosting it. I love interacting with everybody, but I really love when the show's over and the real interactions of talking to each other, getting to know people, meeting new people, meeting new friends, I should say.
Yes.
Just really getting to know our community and those that spend so much time watching us and helping us and supporting us. And we do it for you guys. We are the community. We're part of the community. We aren't, anything separate. So it's awesome to really interact with you guys and hang out and get to know everyone. It's always definitely the best part for me.
absolutely.
Then again, me and Shane will kind of walk off and wander off talking and disappear for a couple hours, forget everybody's there. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to now turn it back over to Mr. Anatra. Like I said, I say it 5 different ways. Bear with me to carry on this particular conversation of the spooky Halloween Mandela effects.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. Actually, the next 3 slides are about the limos. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the white limos. So what happened was at the beginning of the day, JFK started the day in a white limo after the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce breakfast. The white 1963 Lincoln Continental was loaned to the president by Bill Golightly, a local car dealer. It was designated Limo 1, like Air Force One, and it was used to transport Kennedy, Jacqueline, and Texas Governor John Connally from the Hotel Texas to Carswell Air Force Base for their flight to Dallas. Okay, so I wasn't like familiar that they started off the day in a limo and that it was white. It's not the same limo; it's a different limo because this limo was in Fort Worth. And then they took a plane to Dallas. It must have been a very quick plane ride because Fort Worth and Dallas are part of the Metroplex there, they're somewhat close. So there's a white limo here. There's also 2 white limos that are in the motorcade that I never saw before. So the first 2 limos, and I always thought they were black. They're not. They're midnight blue is the color of the limos. So the first 2 limos are midnight blue. And then the 2 limos behind them are white. The first limo that's white was the one that Lyndon Johnson was riding in with his wife. And then there was another limo behind him. So for myself, I don't remember these white limos. And if you were to watch the Zapruder film, if you watch the very beginning of it, you can see like the 2 other white limos coming around the corner. And so someone, or I may have to ask the question, could this have to do with the white hats concept? And I was looking at the guy's name, Bill Golightly, like to the light. Like, so was there something like positive? Was there something possibly going on behind the scenes to maybe change the sequence of events? And the white limo, it says this white limo was the last car to safely transport JFK. It was sold at auction on October 14th, 2020 for $375,000. So white limos have now found their way into the timeline, at least for me. I don't remember all these white limos. So I just wanted to mention that. And is there any questions about this one?
Well, I wanted to point out, like, Connolly's wife's not with them yet. Like, I wonder where she got inserted at what point, when did she show up and join the group? Because they're all 3 sitting in the back and she's not there. But this wouldn't have been strange before the Mandela effect. So
That is
I'm just wondering where she is. Is she in a car following behind? Maybe they didn't have enough room. Maybe they couldn't Mandela effect this car and stretch it too. Right.
Or maybe she didn't want to go to the Fort Worth breakfast. Maybe she just wanted to, like, she's going to wait for them in Dallas. It could have been anything like that. So, and just to kind of like go a little bit further with this, the next slide, we could probably just jump to that. This is the picture of the white limo that Lyndon Johnson rode in. That was 2 cars behind JFK. And it's a photo that was taken after the assassination. So yeah, just to show again that he was in a white limo.
I don't remember the white limos. Like, that's completely new to me.
Is this the famous picture that was on like Time magazine?
No.
Flowers? Okay, this is different.
This is the one that LBJ was in. Yeah, This is different. Now, the next slide is spooky. This is going to be our first like little, we're dipping our toes in the water of spooky.
Okay.
So if you guys are ready for it, we'll go to the next one.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, in one of our last open tables that we did, we were talking about the limo itself seems to have changed with that big tire in the back.
Yes.
Now you can clearly see the license plate. A lot of people don't remember it's like an option that Lincoln had to actually have like a spare tire thing. I don't ever remember that. So we had talked about that in the past. But here's what's spooky. The JFK limo was not taken out of service. And it says here in the writing, you may have assumed that the presidential limousine that carried President Kennedy through Dallas on November 22nd was taken out of service after the assassination. But that would be incorrect. 4 more presidents used it afterwards, equipped with a bulletproof metal and glass hardtop roof. And when I was researching it, Jimmy Carter was the last person to use this limo. Jimmy Carter. And it was finally taken out of service in 1977.
Why would they reuse it? I don't understand that.
Why would they reuse it?
Well, I heard that it went in for all of these modifications right afterwards. So probably to cover tracks or evidence.
But I don't understand why. It's like if some murder was happening in a house, people often choose not to purchase the house, move into the house. They might renovate it. They might remodel it, tear it down.
And a president, you would think it would be, in a twisted way, a memorialization. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like Bonnie and Clyde's car, the car that was shot to pieces, that was not reused as far as I know. And this is a presidential situation.
Right.
Exactly. It still would carry that frequency of death. And with the frequency of, if you don't listen to us, this is what's going to happen to you.
Right.
That frequency as well.
Oh my gosh. That is spooky.
Maybe that's why they used it, because of the intimidation factor that he carried with that.
Yes.
Hey, you'll be under our thumb, especially if you're in this car. You better watch what you do and say.
I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, guys, just buy a new limo. Put this one in mothballs in some warehouse, underground facility. We don't need to be driving presidents.
Well, how are they going to buy a new limo when they're spending $70,000 on a toilet seat?
Yeah, so this is our first spooky slide.
That is very spooky.
That is agreed. Why would they continue to use it? Like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I were president,
it looks like a hearse with the parts up on too.
There's no financial reason to keep putting it in service. It doesn't make any sense logically in any way, except for what you just said as a very sub rosa warning. Just very subliminal, very strong.
And Shane, you're right. It does kind of look like a hearse.
It does.
With that extended window, especially, yeah.
Okay, so we'll continue with our
investigation.
With our investigation. Thank you. So the next slide is primarily, this is just about this is them again coming around the corner. You can see the sign off to the right. I don't ever remember so many people. There's so many, you can't even see all the people. There's so many people that are lining the street now, and on the other side as well. So
there weren't that many people. There were people on the street. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't an empty street, but there weren't that many. There was plenty of standing room.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And from this picture too, you can kind of see in the top center, you can see one of the white limos if you kind of strain your eyes a little bit.
Mm-hmm, in the very back there.
Yeah.
Right.
It looks bluish in this particular frame.
Or blue, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't even know if the change in, like, I always remember the limo being like the one that JFK was in, always being black. I never remember it being midnight blue. So to me, did I miss that whole thing? I don't know. So
I didn't realize until it sort of went into color, because it was always black and white and it just looked so black, you know. But even when it switched to color, it still has a black look to it.
right, it does.
Right.
I don't even remember the two white cars behind there, to be honest with you. I remember riding in a white car earlier that day, but I don't remember two white cars in the back of the, like the third and the fourth cars being white. You can clearly see both of them are extremely light colored. I remember them all just being dark colored cars.
Yeah.
So we're getting some changes of the black turning to blue and some white cars included. Very, very positive timeline changes.
And you wonder,
Go ahead, Chris.
you like, so me, I'm always talking about time travel
Yep.
and time travelers. And,
Yeah,
and
white
this-
hat showing up.
and this is probably one of the, if you were a time traveler and you wanted to observe something that was of major historical importance, and you even possibly wanted to change the outcome, like they were trying to do in that series 11-2263, this would be the JFK assassination is pretty big. Like, people are still talking about.
So I was literally just going to point out, Chris, that Omega Sparks said, are they time travelers who wanted to see it live? And I was just thinking, you got a lot of people here. And it's interesting because there's certain people in the crowd that have their heads fully covered. And there's only a certain number of them like that. And they are white hat coverings, interestingly enough, to your point earlier. Could these be our time travelers that don't want to be seen on a film? They're covering their whole head and whatnot, so they're not identifiable, if you will. That's actually where I was going when you brought time travelers up. That's why I started laughing, like, wow, we're in the same vein now.
Yeah, so this is really the crowds of people. Like, to me, every time I watch this, there's more and more people. In fact, the next slide is going to show people where I never knew there was even people there. So, okay. So there's a lineup of people that are on the other side of Dealey Plaza. So this happened first of all, I don't remember. I mean, the crowds of people are one thing. And then people on the other side of Dealey Plaza, on the other side of the bridge, waiting for the president to go by. That's like totally new for me as well. I've never seen pictures about the people on the other side. So now there's more crowds of people both on either side of the bridge of Dealey Plaza. Now, besides that, I just want to add one more thing, and it has to do with the sign. If you guys notice, there's a sign that says Old Charter. Like
This connects directly to you, Chris.
I know, right? Yeah, because everyone in Connecticut talks about the Charter Oak, and I didn't really know what the Charter Oak was until this particular slide. So basically, I'll describe this a little bit. So in that billboard, it's a billboard for Old Charter Whiskey, which is named after the Charter Oak tree in Hartford, Connecticut, where plans were hidden from the British in 1687 related to Connecticut breaking away from British rule. Perhaps a message for us related to the change in government started by Lyndon Johnson, going into Vietnam, etc., going to the old charter or the old ways of government versus the many changes that JFK wanted to make. So to me, we all know about you call them angel numbers. We're all seeing repeating numbers. The matrix, or however you want to look at it, are angels. They're always giving us clues. And sometimes it's in the form of license plates, numbers on a clock that we see repeating that have a special meaning for us, billboards that we see like this one. So I thought, wow, I wanted to zoom in and see what that billboard was all about. And it has to do with government, and it has to do with this brand of whiskey called the Old Charter. So I thought this was very interesting as well.
Before moving along, they're asking in the chat, this is after the assassination? I mean, he's in the car. This is after he sped away and went under the bridge, and now we're looking on the other side of the bridge, correct?
Yes, exactly. Okay. And then the slide that we're going to look at next is like showing that as well. But yeah, good question.
Cynthia, you had a question?
I'm just amazed. This whole Old Charter thing is brand new to me. I've never seen. I didn't even know about the whiskey. Didn't know about the tree. The significance is mind-boggling. Like the connection that you're making with the old way of government versus what JFK was planning. Wow.
Yeah, there was even talk that I've come across where JFK was actually starting to have talks with the Russians about going to the moon as a joint venture to bind both of our countries, to have like more peace between the countries, because we would have, done a major advance, in harmony with each other. And of course, the old charter was not going to allow that to happen. Even to this day, we know how they feel about Russia. They do not like Russia, according to what I call the old charter or the old ways. So all that stuff go away.
So I think it's interesting. I pointed out a moment ago jokingly that this connects directly to you, Chris, being in Hartford, but IMEC technically is located in Hartford, correct?
Bradford.
Bradford?
Yeah, about an hour away.
An hour. So we're close then.
Yeah.
That's still pretty darn close to our connection there, though. I just find it weird.
Yeah, and there's like the Charter Oak Bridge. Like I'd be like, why do they call it Charter Oak? Like, what's the Charter Oak? Now I know more information about what the Charter Oak was, how they hid these plans in this oak tree in the Hartford area. Yeah.
And so the charter was the new plans, or is that
it was breakaway plans, break away from British rule. Yeah.
So that's what. So the old charter would be in contrast to the new charter.
I see it as the old way versus a new way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to casually point out modern day activities as they are and move on.
Yeah, because we're not political. So
right. So I'm going to point out, if you look around, what you may or may not see, and keep this in mind. Yeah.
Right. But even old Earth and new Earth and these concepts that we've been talking about in Shambhala and the Golden Age.
Yes,
I mean, this is all connected,
It is, yeah.
Right.
3D and 5D moving into interdimensional awareness, which is how some people understand the Mandela Effect, recognizing that we're a lot more interconnected with reality than we think we are. Thus, the time travel effects can happen too. This is pretty trippy.
The Mandela Effect being the new charter, the new way of information exchange, perhaps that's the way of the universe talking to us and giving us heads up of. We're theorizing, of course, on what it means, but.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I love it, Jerry, because when we know, as Mandela affected people, we know the history and the past can change. It often does. So when it does, it's telling us something. And so we're looking at this new to us information, which, some people, skeptics would say it was always there. But those of us that are tracking it and noticing, like Chris has been very, very carefully looking at this entire sequence of events, and new things are showing up. So this makes powerful message for those of us looking for these signs. Even if the sign is turned to our back and it's like blocking the vision now, what does that sign say? Yeah.
And even the guy that's in the picture, the old charter, looks a little bit like LBJ.
I wonder if we could zoom in on that. It does kind of.
Looks like a classic Butler. I see it. Kentucky's finest bourbon. We are a family entertainment. We do not condone such practices or actions.
Okay. So continuing with this, let's go to the next slide, because this is going to add more to what's going on. So not only are there more people, there are more photographers that are taking pictures when the car had left Dealey Plaza, had gone, under the bridge, and is going towards the hospital. So in this particular photograph, this is one that Secret Service agent Clint Hill would use. He would sign it as like an autograph copy. Like, I don't know what he was doing, if he would meet people at a certain place. So this particular photograph can be easily found on the internet now. I've never seen it before. So this is like another thing. Like, what are these? Why were there other photographers on the other side? You'd think all the action would have been on the other side of the bridge, but now there's even more on this side of the bridge, which is interesting.
That is interesting. More action after than before.
Yes,
literally in after than in the before. That can be taken in a multitude of ways.
Yeah. And just continuing in this line, we can go to the next slide, which kind of continues this train of thought. But there's another new video that has just emerged.
Dun, dun, dun.
So this particular one is interesting because it's new footage. It was, recently like discovered or rediscovered. Somebody said they found it in their uncle's bottom of a closet in a, wooden crate or something. They didn't know what it was, and, et cetera, et cetera. So for myself, I was shocked when I heard about the Orville Nix film. So everyone knew about the Zapruder film. I had never heard of Orville Nix or the Orville Nix film. And then there was the Marie Muchmore film. And then there was a Mary Mormon who took a Polaroid at the exact moment he was shot. And there's like 2 other films. They're kind of like not easy to see, but also of the actual assassination. All of these films, all of this like video footage that's coming into this reality. I'll just read what it says here. The new footage shows JFK's motorcade before it arrived at Dealey Plaza, where the president was shot on November 22nd. In addition to the video, the 8mm film also contained an image of Kennedy's limo rushing to the hospital following the shooting in Dallas. So if you look at the picture of the limo, you see Clint Hill is on there. So he's over Jackie and JFK. So the photographer would have had to been on the other side. So Heather, if you go back to the previous slide, just to show. So yeah, so there was so not only are there people lined up on this side of the street, there's at least a photographer and someone taking video on the other side of the street, which again is like, wow, like all of this stuff is starting to come into the reality. So you can go back to the next slide also. If we pull down the video, there's a video that we can watch about this new video that was just found.
A video about a video?
Video about a video. See the white one. One of the things that jumped out to me when I was like watching this, and that is that the flag, I don't remember the flags on the limo being so huge. I don't know if anyone else is like, wow, those are huge flags now. I don't remember them being so big.
They block view of the windshield. You can, they're so large. Yeah.
Yeah. So new video footage, has come out. I think it was sold in a private auction, and that all of the video footage is not released to the public. Like a private collector bought it. So there's just like some stills and so forth of it. But I found I swear every time I look, there's like, I never saw that before. So.
Yep. Wow.
Okay. So this kind of sets the scene for our next level of spookiness.
We got to think a bit of a clue of it too. The North Stemmons Freeway was mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I'm glad you spotted that, Cynthia. That is exactly true. We see the word Stemmons that has appeared.
Next slide, please.
Okay.
So Stemmons, we have the 3 witches of Stemmons Tower. So what are these particular hooded figures that we found in the beginning of our investigation here?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just read what's on here. It says the first building of Stemmons Towers Business Park in Dallas opened in 1962.
Same year.
So a year before. 1122.
Year before. Yeah, that's right. Year before. You're right.
Stemmons Towers is about 4 miles from Dealey Plaza and adjacent to Parkland Hospital, where JFK was taken. The witches were made of black stone, which appears to be onyx, and they were called hooded figures. Now, this is a kind of a spooky part too. People would say that at night the witches would come alive, perform rituals, and dance around the fountain. You could see them from the highway route to Parkland Hospital. So, yeah. So this is where these witches come into the conversation at this location called Stemmons Towers. And we're going to go into more like detail about, what that means and when the witches were actually placed there and etc. But I had never heard of Stemmons Towers before. I had never heard about like these 3 cloaked figures. And I think as these slides go on, you'll start to see how it all relates into time and timelines and fate.
Well, I find it fascinating. It says the figures literally come alive and perform rituals and dances and all these interesting things.
Yeah, if you go online and do some research, people will say like they would take their friends there at night and to scare them and tell them spooky stories. And yeah. And like, what? This is Stemmons Towers was a business park. Why are you going to have like 3 cloaked figures in a business park for business people? Like, it doesn't seem to make any sense.
Well, I mean, I'm going to use the certain argument of Shiva.
Right? Yeah. On the surface, it doesn't seem to make any sense.
Right. However, if you take a layer down, you may find a little more meaning than you would expect to find, right?
Yes.
So next slide then.
Okay, now this slide is interesting because I was trying to figure out were they placed there before the assassination, were they placed there after the assassination? We don't really know for sure, but I found an article in the Dallas Morning News from July 31st of 1966, where it said, these strange figures are permanent sidewalk superintendents, this is what they call it anyway, at the new Stemmons Tower North, 4th and final building being erected in the complex on Stemmons Freeway. The 3 stone hooded figures by sculptor Pedro Coronel are among several works on the tower's landscaped plaza. And so that was from the Dallas Morning News, July 31st, 1966. So we know they were in the area, at least by that date, at least by July 31st, 1966. No one knows for sure, but that particular newspaper article was from July 31st of that year, of 1966. It's interesting, too, when you start to research this sculptor, Pedro Coronel, it says that he was known to have a violent personality, for whatever that's worth. I just thought I'd throw that in there. So now, dates are important. And do things have to be placed on a certain date? How does time actually work? How do these rituals actually work? And we'll be getting into that too on the next slide that we get to. But are there any questions so far?
Was there any significance to the black onyx that they're made of, Chris?
Yes, I believe that there is. And it has to do, I'll draw the comparison with Gemini. And we're gonna get into that a little bit. But yeah, actually, I think it's the next slide. We actually do.
Next slide, please.
Yeah. Okay. So
dun dun dun.
The importance of dates and Gemini. So JFK was assassinated on November 22nd of 63. His brother RFK was pronounced dead on 6/6/1968, which is a 666 date. So I thought that was interesting. And then if you were to take the halfway point between the JFK assassination and the RFK assassination, that gives you a date of February 28th of 1966. So in between both those assassinations, that is the exact center date. And for me, that date was coming up and being important. So could the witches have been put into place, or at least some kind of a ceremony that would have happened by February 28th of 1966 to seal the fates of both JFK and RFK. And it's interesting, I found this site online where they have presidential phone calls that are recorded. And on February 28th of 1966, there was a phone call between Johnson and the head of the Democratic National Party talking about how RFK could be dangerous and that they, I couldn't tell whose voice was who, but felt that he may not be a good candidate to be president. It was kind of like a weird conversation. Maybe it lasted 8 minutes. Now, on the right hand, I'm just going to jump to what's written underneath that little newspaper clipping. It said the sculpture was made from black onyx, which is very powerful for protection from negativity. However, astrologers say that Geminis, so if you're born in that date range of a Gemini, you should not wear black onyx, like as in jewelry, etc., because it could harm them or create negative effects. And guess who is a Gemini? JFK.
JFK. I was going to say JFK.
JFK was a Gemini. Exactly. Now, what else happened on February 28th, 1966? A NASA Northrop T-38 Talon crashed at Lambert Field in St. Louis, Missouri, killing 2 Project Gemini astronauts, Elliot C. and Charles Bassett. The aircraft, piloted by C, crashed into the McDonnell Aircraft Building where the Gemini 9 spacecraft was being assembled. I always found that so ironic that the plane crashed into the building where they were actually constructing the Gemini 9 spacecraft.
Wow.
We've got like another kind of piece to the puzzle here that's going on.
This is just wild. I mean,
Are you suggesting this was some sort of timeline insertion, like they were trying to stop the project, like either good or bad forces were trying to affect something?
I think ultimately what I'm going to imply in this whole presentation is that there are, those in higher levels of the government, et cetera, whatever, that do call on these forces, these dark forces, to help them with whatever they're trying to do, or deals are made, or whatever, whatever's going on behind the scenes, that a lot of the time the public just has absolutely zero idea of what's going on. But I believe that these type of things do happen and may have happened in this particular situation.
And we know from outside research, not just within IMEC research, of course, but for those of us who have been researching the elites and their particular practices and rituals for many years, we know that they definitely do perform some of these particular type rituals. And for those that don't believe in any of that, whether you believe in it or not, they do. So take that as you will, right? Like, power belief is strong.
And if you look at them as being expert timeline warriors, it starts making sense that they would stick with a practice that is efficacious. So there we are. Whether or not we agree with it, it's like, well, look what the timeline warriors that keep coming out on top are doing.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So like I said, we know that there's a lot of rituals and dark magic that they use. And we have a person over here in chat who's pointing out that not all witches and not all those who practice magic are bad. And I will agree with that. We're not judging either way. We're presenting the information. If they're practicing dark magic, I'd say those particular ones are probably bad.
Yeah, just think of the Wizard of Oz. There was the bad witch and the good witch, so we definitely can see the contrasts.
Yeah.
So we're talking about more of the darker side, the spooky side, the bizarre side.
Right, the Halloween side, or the Mandela side.
That's it. Yep.
And apparently they came from Sandy Diva, a member of the community. So shout out to Sandy Diva. She actually had that as her show title the other night. So shout out to Sandy.
So now the next slide has to do with rain, because not a lot of people knew that it was forecast to be rain all day.
Oh, wow.
Now, if that would have actually happened, they wouldn't have had the top down, right?
Right.
I don't think Jackie wouldn't want to get her hair soaking wet and
No.
the bouquets of roses and all that.
Yeah.
So in this particular slide, it says the day started out damp and overcast in Dallas on November 22nd of 63 with 0.06 inches of rain as a cool front was working its way north into northern Texas. The local weather forecast had called for more rain later in the day, but it turned sunny and bright in the late morning hours, just as President Kennedy's motorcade was set to leave for the crosstown journey in Dallas. The unexpected sunshine combined with stiff southerly winds of 15 to 30 miles per hour helped to boost temperatures rather quickly towards an afternoon high near the 70-degree mark. So here we are, the end of November. It's sunny. It's now hot. You can see why that decision was made. And then just the rest of this, the last paragraph says, as a result of the unexpected turn of events with the weather, President Kennedy opted to not go with the plexiglass bubble on the 1961 Lincoln convertible, despite the wishes of the Secret Service. Crowds were already lining the streets in Dallas, and President Kennedy wanted them to be able to see him during the ride, which was expected to last less than an hour. So talk about the weather. We talk about changing the weather. So is it possible the whole assassination on this particular date could have been avoided if there was rain? So you have to ask the question, were there forces that were manipulating the weather? Because the weather plays a big role in these things. So I wanted to point out this as well, that this whole thing could have changed if the weather stayed to what the weatherman said it was supposed to be for the day.
Is this new information or was this already known? Because I've never heard this before.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this argument used before. I've heard people talk about that if the bubble top was on there, the plexiglass bubble top, they wouldn't have been able to, like, the assassination wouldn't have happened that day. So I've heard that argument used, but that it was supposed to rain all day and then all of a sudden it turned bright and sunny.
And we have seen the umbrella lady or umbrella man, whoever that was.
That's a good point, because if you think about it, the umbrella man may not have been that off if rain had originally been projected for the day. So people would have brought an umbrella maybe.
Yeah.
So you can kind of understand the logic with that.
So I'm going to interject an alternate theory that I've been thinking about since you hit this slide. There's another big event, a huge event that would definitely be a time travel worthy event that had a sudden weather pattern show up around it also. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
I do.
So we've got two major historical events who have sudden, strange rain weather patterns that have shown up near or around their areas. Could this, in theory, plausibly be a sign of time travel? The fact that it disrupts the area to the point that it causes a weather system to appear in that localized area.
Yes. So Jerry, what you're talking about, I believe there was a hurricane that was expected to hit that area. And
on 9/11, yes.
Yeah, it just veered out to sea. It never actually happened. But think about it. If there was a hurricane and it was affecting that area on that day, would the planes have been able to crash into the buildings and, whatever it is. Yeah. And that's another thing we're going to need. I believe we're going to need healing from these things, both, the JFK, 9/11, these other types of conspiracy type things, because it's captured people's imaginations. And I think we're ready to know the truth. I think everybody here that's listening to this presentation is ready to hear more than ready to hear the truth, or at least get to another layer of the truth.
Are ready for everyone else to hear it and understand.
Right.
Yeah. And with all the light coming onto the planet, like I say, that we're in a new era of light, the things in the darkness, the things that have been hidden from view, the things that have been kept secret, they're just not going to be able to be kept secret anymore. That's the way I feel. So, and I think it might start off with just more stuff being revealed about the JFK thing in the upcoming year or so. We'll see.
Next slide.
Okay. Well, before you do the next slide, be prepared for more spookiness.
Uh-oh. About to get spooky again, ladies and gentlemen. Grab your blankie. Okay, the three witches, the spookiest part of all, and the fates of McBeth. Boil and bubble, toil and trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got three. We got the number three. And we see that as a repeating thing, whether it's the three Stemmons witches, the three witches of McBeth, or the three fates. I'm not calling them witches, I'm calling them fates. I get the message that they're very beautiful. And we should not refer to them that way, and I won't.
They weren't in the movie.
That's the movie, right? So in any event, if anyone's familiar with Shakespeare or not, basically in the McBeth play, a Scottish general named McBeth receives a prophecy from a trio of witches that one day he will become king of Scotland. Consumed by ambition and spurred to action by his wife, McBeth murders King Duncan and takes the Scottish throne for himself. McBeth kills King Duncan and then murders the servants he blames for the king's death. So basically you have a scenario where the King Duncan dies. McBeth says it was these people that killed him. And then conveniently, those people get murdered. Kind of reminds me what happened to Oswald, right? He was blamed. And then all of a sudden he's taken out of the picture. There's nothing he can now do to rectify himself and give himself all of the information to put it out there to show that there's a big doubt that he was actually involved in it at all. And I had sent you guys an email. I don't know if you remember it or not, but there's this famous thing about Oswald saying, like, I'm a patsy. You know, I remember him saying that. And I was watching that video footage again. He says something slightly different now.
Oh, wow.
Now, to me anyway, he says, I'm just a patsy. Where before I remember him saying, I'm a patsy. Now he says, I'm just a patsy. So it's minor, but like that jumped out at me. I just don't remember that I'm just a patsy. So I just wanted to mention that. So this whole situation with black magic, these witches, and then how they're possibly tied into the fates, where the fates can also determine your life and death on this planet. I think they say that the only one that has control over the fates is Zeus himself. So
I don't even think Zeus had control over the fates, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Because they're the one that prophesied his death. That's what the whole ending of that part of the story was, is he was trying to avoid what the fates had decided. That's where Jägermonder come in and all that.
Okay. And now the next slide gets a little bit more into the fates. So we can go to the next one. The three fates. The fates in Greek and Roman mythology, or Morai. Oh my God, I guess got to tell you guys something. Every day I see like 25 signs that say elect Morai. That's somebody here in Connecticut that's running for Senate or something. And they, everyone's got their signs out on their lawn. I keep seeing Morai everywhere I go. And I'm like, and then I was doing this and I'm like, hello, fates. I see the message you're trying to send me. Message received. So it's always, again, you get confirmation sometimes with signage. I know it sounds bizarre, but you do. So the fates in Greek and Roman mythology, or Morai, are three female figures who control the fate of humans, deciding when and how they die. So could this be involved with some kind of black magic used to ensure the assassination of JFK? Not just him, but his brother, and then all the players that were involved, because, Jack Ruby shoots Oswald, a couple years later, Jack Ruby dies from a big cancer, and like all these people that were connected and have knowledge, all of a sudden they just disappeared. They don't disappear, they actually died. So I think that there is more involved than just JFK. It spanned all the way into RFK as well. And then what kind of a deal do you make to be able to enforce this? So I don't know who made the deal and et cetera. First of all, I'm not even saying a deal was made, but if there was a deal that was made, who made it? And, nothing is for free, especially when it comes to the fates and that concept. If they're going to do something for you, you're going to do something for them. It's just the way it works. So wanted to point that out. And could also there have been so much time travel interference? even that series 112263 was all about making sure that JFK never got shot. So could there have been all of these I'm a time traveler, I'm going to prevent this from happening, So was there a lot of that stuff going on? Or I'm a time traveler and I've got special abilities with the weather, so I'm going to make sure that it's raining that day, or whatever it could have been. So is it possible that the fates could have had to be called in to make sure that things happened, and that those timelines are kind of locked in, so to speak, as far as the deaths of all these people go? So this is probably the one of the darkest concepts that we'll be talking about today.
Well, if the fates are real, they could literally be doing the Mandela effect.
That's a
They
theory
would have
I haven't explored too much before. Wow.
Right. I mean, think about it. They would literally be able to change reality to fit and make it whatever they need to be for whatever purposes they need to achieve.
They might be a level of us as well. They could be, like when you look at Carl Jung and collective consciousness and levels of conscious agency that I like to look at, then this could be some level of that as well. It's fascinating.
What I also find fascinating is this actually seems to connect back to your previous report, Chris. What are they called again?
The Stemmons witches?
No. The mythology. These fates are called the what?
Morai.
Morai. Well, that sounds really familiar. Moai.
Oh, Easter Island. Yeah.
Oh, is it spelled the same way?
No, it's just very, very close. Morai, Moai. It's not very far apart in language.
And
That's
they're
funny.
made of lava, made of stone.
Fascinating.
That's
just what I've been thinking was ever since you said Morai. Wait, where have I heard that? Sounds like someone. Oh, Moai. We've been talking about that. Huh.
Yeah.
And I could be off. I could be way off out in left field, but I just find it a really interesting little coinkydink.
Since you brought it up, Jerry, those Moai on Easter Island now face inward, for those who haven't watched that episode that we just recently did. So they're keeping an eye on the navel of the world, which is where time travelers might be conceivably coming in. So these huge Easter Island statues that myself and many people, I remember them looking out to the ocean. Now they're not. They're looking inwards at the center of the island, as Chris pointed out. And this is fascinating because it seems like they're intent on stopping some kind of magical interference or influence of some sort, as if they're aware of that. So, I mean, we have to say something. You're right, Jerry.
Now that's interesting, Cynthia. That expands the thought even more so. I hadn't thought about the protection of the influence. Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's a good tip for those of us who might not want so much black magic interference in our planet. Maybe the Easter Island folks knew something, and they knew surround the closet where the rabbit hole exists. And, like like that Stephen King story plot idea for 11/22/63.
Right. Interesting indeed. So that's a very fascinating piece of this investigation, that it just keeps getting more and more fascinating down this rabbit hole.
And because we're talking about signs and signals, I've recently become aware that if you start, it's called surrounding the dragon in acupuncture. If there's some sort of a spider bite or an infection of some sort, you can put acupuncture needles all around it, like the Moai on Easter Island, facing in at the infected or in the area of contention, and they will draw out the poison. So that came to my attention in the last month or two, and I don't think that's a bizarre thing. Easter Island surrounding the dragon, and then this whole thing about the Morai. So seems very symbolic, very significant. And another tip, like another signal, like this could be. I like to ask, how good can it get? We're looking at dark subjects today. I would like to know, how can we surround the dragon? I mean, I love dragons, but some dragons might be the dark side. So if you feel like, okay, we're getting dark influence, what if you surround that particular dark dragon? And I just wanted to bring that up too, because it's something fascinating that very strange that came to my attention.
That does make sense.
Yeah, and I had a somewhat recent interaction with dragons when I went to Scotland, on the island of Iona. And
it's like McBeth, Scotland. Okay, go ahead.
It's your what?
It's like McBeth, Scotland.
Oh, McBeth. Actually, okay, here's another connection. Guess who's buried on the island of Iona? King Duncan.
What?
King Duncan is on he's on the island of Iona.
Okay.
And so I was getting bits and pieces about what happened, like my interactions with them. There's like 500 dragons there, and Earth was involved. And there's basically the whole healing concept has been coming to me ever since that. So darkness being light being shed, darkness being revealed, and then us going through a healing process, and then being able to move on, be true sovereign beings. Not that we aren't already, but to really, really make it so it's 100% in every cell of our body. So now, before we go to the next slide, the next slide is kind of what ties this all together. So I want to thank everybody that's watched so far, because now we're actually going to be getting to the climax. It's like you're watching a movie and then you think it's going to go one way and then it kind of goes another way, but in an unexpected way that starts to make sense. So all along we've been talking about the importance of, things that we can view, like signage, for example. And whether it's me seeing signs to elect Morai everywhere I go, at least in my path to work, I see those signs everywhere, to the old charter sign that was on that billboard, on the other side of Dealey Plaza. And then at the very beginning of this presentation, there was the signage that blocks seeing a full view of part of the JFK motorcade right before he's assassinated. So I don't know if anyone knows what that sign actually says, but the next slide is going to reveal it. So if you're ready, Heather, let's go to the next slide.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh my gosh.
Stemmons Freeway, keep right. Everything in the matrix has meaning, including the signage that you see, number patterns, license plates, etc. So isn't that interesting how at some point, at least I got into a timeline where at some point that sign was never there. Now it's there, and it's all about Stemmons.
So this is the sign that we started out looking from the backside of. You said it's in the way of the car. It was not there for me. This don't belong here. So we're looking at the front side of this very same sign now, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Now we're looking at the front side. So
this picture looks like it was taken in 1963. The clothing, the font on the print, it looks like it's periods. Is this actually
the style of the signs?
Was this photo taken November 22nd or some thereabouts? Pretty much.
Yeah, and again, we're like all the people that are not that you see a lot of people here, but what happens right after this is that there's a stampede of people that run up to the grassy knoll because everyone heard the shots coming from there. They weren't running backwards; they were running up there. So just as you see these people reacting, all of a sudden there's like crowds that are running up there. And you can see that in like the Orville Nix film, for example. You can see the crowds running up. And then a lot of eyewitness testimony too that says everyone heard the shots coming from up there. So, but in any event, here we go with the Stemmons. So in my old timeline, that sign wasn't there. Or if it was there, Zapruder was filming from another location. So there you go. Food for thought.
And now with the sign here, it draws our attention to the Stemmons Plaza, to the Stemmons witches, to this entire timeline situation that you're presenting today. Very cool.
So one might ask, where are these Stemmons witches now?
Yes.
We'll go to our next slide.
Dun, 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 dun. They're in the middle of the woods.
What?
Yeah, a photo surfaced on Facebook earlier this year, which appears to show the Stemmons witches at an undisclosed location.
I mean, it's easier for them to do their rituals out there.
They got moved? I mean, what happened? So what's the official story?
There is I couldn't find any official story.
Huh.
The official story is in the Akashic Records or the Living Library of Light. That's where we're going to find the official story. And it's going to be confusing because you got to look at all the different timelines and how they all came together.
Right.
So, for whatever reason, these same witches happen to be at Dealey Plaza, or I'm sorry, across the street from the hospital where JFK was, correct?
At some point, they were placed pretty much across the street from Parkland Hospital. Yes.
And then some point afterwards, that we don't know at what point, they were moved to this wooded location undisclosed.
Exactly. I think it might have been in the 70s, because I think I saw people saying that they would go there in the 70s and maybe early 80s, to scare their friends. And they kind of like weren't there anymore after that.
See, they're really the weeping angels, and they set them all looking at each other so they can't move.
Yeah, that's a rough. You should got to explain that one, Jerry. So that's.
So the Weeping Angels are a sci-fi television reference to Doctor Who, which is really interesting. I'll just step into this really quick. They use quantum mechanics to move. If you're looking at them, they are stuck. They cannot move. They are a statue. The moment you blink or take your vision away from them, they become quantum and can move anywhere, basically. When you look back, they're stuck in time again, kind of like red light, green light when you were a kid, stop and go. But it only works when you're observing them. Of course, the double slit experiment and the things learned in quantum mechanics from that. But that's where that joke came from, by the way, for those that don't know.
This is an interesting reference. Yeah, I do include it in my new book about the Mandela Effect, the whole thing about blink and you miss it, because it's that whole concept of the observer effect, exactly. And maybe there's some role that plays with blink and you miss it. Now they're gone from Stemmons Plaza. We don't know where they went, but here they are. It's fascinating. And it seems like another marker of this whole situation with JFK, possible utilization of maybe some black magic along the way. It's harder to encircle this timeline interference if the some of the key areas have moved themselves. So interesting.
It also makes you wonder what kind of spells have been cast upon these particular statues. Perhaps they really do move around and do certain things if they had the right spells cast. And this is, if you believe in such things or not, of course, this is a what if, But I find it interesting that they seem to be controlled by dark powers, dark people that practice dark magic, seem to be controlling these darkly created figures. And we're in a place where a very dark occurrence happened. And then we're moved out of that place and hidden in the woods where nothing could happen around them.
Does this look like Houston to anybody? I don't know Houston forests, but I don't think this looks like Houston just at a glance.
I couldn't tell you. It looks like woods. It looks like Tennessee and Texas and West Virginia.
Hard to say. Okay.
What's something too, like another part of this that might play into it, I don't know, but that article I found in the Dallas Morning News of July 31st of 1966, I thought it was interesting that the day after that, August 1st of 1966, there was a big tragedy in Texas. It was the Texas shooting from the bell tower. There was like a sniper that was like killing people. And so that happened the day after the article came out about, what do they call them? The superintendents that are watching over the Stemmons Tower, what they call these three cloaked figures. So you wonder about sacrifice and you wonder about those type of things. Like, how is all this stuff connected?
And that's why I'd like to encircle it, like the Easter Island practice would require. And maybe we can do that ourselves. Just circle this whole question that we've raised with how good can it get? Circle it with the knowledge that we're bigger than whatever these Stemmons witches are. And whatever they may be trying to do, the light is coming through.
Yeah, because I actually believe that this whole reality, like everything, all the drama, all the polarity, everything that we experience, we actually created it all.
Right.
Like, so we're the creators of all this, so we can easily change, how the creation works. And I believe that we're going to be doing that anyway, is what we're going to be doing. But yeah, we have created it all. So,
I would even argue that the spell has been broken for the fact the information is now coming out, or is now out at all, that we can discuss this, that we know about it.
With this conversation, we're creating a circle around it. Yes, absolutely.
And pushing the poison out, as it were.
Yes. Releasing the dark poison. Yes.
Chris, I have found this absolutely fascinating research that you've come across here. This is a story that I've never heard anyone else explain or even touch on or dive into or look at. Definitely a piece of history that has been lost, or perhaps it's been, put in. That's still yet to be debated, but definitely an astounding report for Mandela here. I find it fascinating because I didn't know anything about the Stemmons witches before you brought this report to the team.
Yeah, and all this information just like jumped out at me. Like I don't know how to describe it, but it just stuff started popping out at me, when I was doing my research, and I'm like, okay, here's a connection, here's just one connection after another. So I felt it was important to share.
I think the timing is important too. Like you said, it's quite likely that there may be a revelation of what really did happen. More information keeps coming out anyway, but it seems like this is part of our process to bring more light to this subject and prepare ourselves for whatever may be disclosed, whatever the official disclosure is. And that word disclosure is interesting because, of course, it comes up with the UFO community. I know that there's a lot of disclosure that could happen that hasn't happened yet for exactly what we're talking about, the Mandela Effect. I know the government knows a lot about it. They know about mind-matter interaction. They've got patents for it. They haven't released it. In fact, that information tends to go silent. It becomes national security. So we're looking at that and saying, okay, time for disclosure everywhere, time for light everywhere. And this is not just us asking for it. It's a global, unstoppable cosmic phenomenon. It's too big to press back into its little container. There's too much demand for all of these secrets to be revealed. So it'll be happening. And thank you. I share Jerry's sentiments. Thank you so much, Chris, for bringing this to our attention and sharing these amazing connections. And as you've done before with timeline wars and the awareness that sometimes we can see evidence of that in the Mandela Effect. I don't know anyone else who's doing such a good, clear job of bringing this to light as you are. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that. So there you go. Happy Halloween.
And, it's interesting because, we may come upon finding later that these witches come back out into the mainstream. Perhaps more information comes out. We start seeing them along the route in video or something. Perhaps there's no telling what could happen. And it always tends to build off of stuff that we've already done. So this could be a much more important episode than we know going forward, or maybe not. Maybe it's nothing. But it's fascinating that this certain information has come out now, and that always tends to build on elsewhere.
Yes. And Shane, did you want to have any last words about comments, thoughts, observations?
Yeah, I can bring up one comment. Let's see. There was a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Someone was daring someone to go out there with a Ouija board and see if they can get some response from the there it is.
I dare someone in Texas go there with a Ouija board. I'm glad you understood that because I seen it, did not understand WG board at all. I'm glad you got that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that's one place on the planet you won't find me on Halloween.
Especially with a Ouija board, right?
Yeah. That's not going to happen.
We're not recommending people do this, by the way.
No, absolutely not.
Now, by the way, Chris, did you find out in your investigation and research who Stemmons is?
Yeah, Stemmons was a person in Texas history, especially in the Dallas area. I believe he also was a politician in the 1920s and so forth. So yeah, the Stemmons name is something that's well known in Dallas from the 20s.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure that was covered.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that this was so close to Dallas because the main actor from that TV show Dallas was played by Larry Hagman, J.R. Ewing. And if in my book Reality Shifts, that was the first Mandela Effect, would be the first one that ever appeared in printed writing. Larry Hagman is somebody that I saw who was dead, then he was alive again, then he died again. So I covered that. We don't call it the Hagman effect, but if we did, there'd be a Dallas component to this whole thing because he was a star on Dallas.
It was that close.
Pretty funny.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, next slide, please. Thank you so very much to all of our current and new Patreon sponsors, ladies and gentlemen. We do not have a Green Room episode for this particular episode, as this is a pop-up Mandela special. We did not have a Green Room for this one, so you will not be missing anything, Patreon members. You're not got one coming for this. Our apologies, as we're ramping up for the incredible conference we got coming up, ladies and gentlemen, next week. I'm so excited to see you guys in person. It really does like make my year just getting to hang out with you guys, and let alone the entire community that's going to be there with us. But for exclusive content, ladies and gentlemen, like our Green Room episodes that are only available on Patreon, make sure you hit that link right there with your phone. Make sure you hit the QR code or go on over to patreon.com/IMEC if I'm not mistaken. We should have some links that are going to appear in the chat, I hope, here in just a couple moments. If not, then, well, we tried. But ladies and gentlemen, go check us out. We appreciate all of our Patreon members, all the support you guys give us, and we appreciate all of you guys out there supporting the International Mandela Effect Conference.
And the support on YouTube. A lot of people do that too, and we appreciate that. You can put in a super chat or a super sticker in the comments afterward or during this live stream. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We totally appreciate all of your support financially, because it does go 100% into these productions that you're watching right now, and we'll be having coverage from the conference. So we need your support to make that happen, and we really appreciate it. It doesn't have to be Patreon, it can be YouTube. Thank you.
Wouldn't it be so nice if the world didn't work on this money system? We could just do things. That would be so amazing, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're forced into that whole money system deal. We don't agree with it, but that's what they use. We don't agree with black magic, but we know that's being used. You know, same thing. You know,
We circle it. We're just surrounding it, looking at it from a higher level, and that's the right thing to always do. If you want to exert mind matter influence, that's how you do it, and that's what we're doing. So
and of course, the more positive energy you shed on a bad circumstance or a bad situation, the more is going to come to light and reveal, like we reveal our next slide, please. Mark your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. Mark your calendars. That's right. We've got one more show this year. We're going to be in the conference next month, and we won't have a show next month because, well, there's a lot of work that goes on before, during, and after those events. So we'll be cleaning up until about December 17th. So December 18th, we'll have a new show.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, our next IMEC episode, Open Tables, will be December 18th, 2024, the last one of this season. And, of course, the 2024 4th Annual International Mandela Effect Conference, our 5th year, our 4th in-person event. We had one online. Thank you, 2020. The year I'll never visit if I become a time traveler. Ladies and gentlemen, can we make that pact that we'll never visit the worst year on record if we become time travelers? Can we just make it illegal to do? And then become a time cop. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in the Mandela Effect and want to come discuss it with us and a group of people of your like mind and a group of your peers, if you will, come on out to the 2024 International Mandela Effect Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, ladies and gentlemen. Mount Juliet, to be exact, the Hilton Garden Inn in Mount Juliet. All the information is available on our website, our newly revamped website that looks absolutely amazing. And that is imec.world, imec.world. And real quick, before I get to that, Ruth Amaya with a $20 super sticker. It says, thanks for being you. No, thanks for being you, Ruth. We appreciate that. And thank all of you guys for being here with us. I do want to give a special shout out to a couple of the unsung heroes that really don't get enough credit, in my opinion. They work very hard behind the scenes. They pull together things that just blow our minds sometimes. And that would be our webmaster, Senna. I'm not going to give the last name, but Senna does an amazing job. Senna, I apologize if I said your name wrong, partner. But interacting with him has been incredible. Our website looks amazing. He's done an absolute fascinating job overhauling that thing and making it just look incredible. So huge shout out to our webmaster as well as our producer. I know she turns red as a beet every time I do it, but huge shout out producer Heather. Does a wonderful job of holding this together and keeping us in line. Ladies and gentlemen, she's the real leader of the gang. Don't be mistaken. She does a great job, production quality and everything she does for us. So keeps us in line, keeps us together, make sure we're scheduled and know that we're scheduled. So huge shout out to Heather, huge shout out to the webmaster Cena, to everybody behind the scenes who has volunteered and worked with IMEC in the past and in the future. We appreciate all of you guys. So I just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. Also huge shout out to Bo Kim. Have to give that shout out, of course. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, Cynthia, do you have anything left for the audience?
Just keep asking, how good can it get? People are concerned, obviously, about what's happening in the world. Don't be worried about it. Just know, how good can it get? Stay loose, stay calm, stay grounded, stay energized.
Do your part to do right, and that's all you can do, right?
Yeah, we got this.
I like that. We got this. How good can it get, ladies and gentlemen? Cynthia Sue Larson, Christopher Anatra. Last words for the audience, sir.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to giving my presentation. It's called The Earth Game, and I also just filmed a presentation for my YouTube channel. It'll probably be at least an hour and a half. I hope to have it out by Thanksgiving. That goes into more details about the Earth Game and what that means and how to play it. So I'm excited about that. And I'm really looking forward to meeting everybody in Nashville next week. See you there.
Do you happen to have the cheat codes?
I don't think you want cheat codes.
I can't wait to hear this presentation, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be absolutely amazing. I probably should pay attention a lot more because I want to know how to play this Earth Game correctly. Thank you so much, Chris. I very much look forward to seeing you in the next week, actually. I believe we'll be meeting up in person.
Woo-hoo.
Ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Anatra, you know him as the Quantum Businessman. And of course, Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence. Last words for the audience, sir.
We'll see you guys next week. So looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome time.
Do you have the name of your talk yet? Do you want to give it out? Do you want to make him wait?
Just see you guys next week.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Robinson of Unbiased and On the Fence, as he said, see you guys next week. And I am, of course, Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are the International Mandela Effect Conference. I appreciate all of you guys being here. I appreciate this amazing team. I cannot tell you guys how blessed I am to have worked with these guys for 5 years now, and it's just it's true love. I can't even find another way to explain it. I love you guys. I love all of our audience, this community. We do this because of you guys. And with that said, on behalf of Cynthia Sue Larson, Christopher Anatra, Shane Robinson, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. Together we are the International Mandela Effect Conference. And remember, until next we meet, together we go, together we grow.
We
Bye, everybody.
Love you so much.